I was at a mother's friend's house in Malaysia, flying back from England to visit family, and I think it was Chinese New Year. And specifically at that house, I was guilty of doing a certain bad habit that involves typing P in the browser. And I did it in the toilet. And from that night, I felt a weird type of headache that was either sharp or blunt in certain types of areas around my head. It wasn't the typical headache you would feel that was like a tension headache or maybe a little bit of a burn on the front of your forehead. Now, me being the 12-year-old ignorant child I reluctantly searched up on Google my symptoms of a headache. And I came across either brain cancer or both of them together. And this really messed me up as a 12-year-old kid. And this was my first taste of a health scare or a health trauma. That led to 3 years of probably the most hyper research and hyper scaredness and like super sensitive to health type of scenario. I even remember taking the train from my mother's friend's house back to my grandmother's house and just sitting there waiting for the train. I was so scared. For that whole entire week, I remember just being so scared and like, oh, I just want to see a doctor so fast, so please just get me an x-ray. I'm so scared. And just sitting there next to my mom, I just kept on asking her and like reaffirming the fact that we're gonna go and see a doctor as soon as we get back to England. We get back to England and of course we book an appointment with a GP, an NHS, a doctor, and we go to the appointment, and me fully expecting to be solved, cured, and me fully expecting to be told and fully examined and fully x-rayed to be fully like just know what is happening with me. But instead, the GP told me that I had a tension headache. Oh, does it feel like there's a rubber band on your forehead? And I was like, maybe. And then they asked me if it was a sharp or a blunt pain. And I told her it was both, and then she's kind of like muddled out of the conversation. She kind of just like, you know when someone's trying to exit a conversation? I'm sure you felt this before. They don't really reply back to you anymore. They kind of just have this offbeat reply that isn't really like related to what the conversation is. And so that's what happened with the doctor, and it never got solved, and it got classified as a tension headache. I honestly can't express how deeply scared I was from this trauma. I even consulted another one of my mother's friends on that. She's kind of like a law of attraction. She's read the law of attraction, and she's kind of this like manifestation, self-improvement, at the time anyway, self-improvement type of individual. And so I thought, why not ask her? She knows probably like all the secrets, like if you get the joke, the secret book. And at that time, that was probably the only sort of refuge and like safety. She told me that the more you think about it, the more likely it will happen. The more you fear it, the more likely it will happen. And she told me about this story about this elderly man who genuinely thought he had cancer. He went to the doctor and said, I have cancer, and I need surgery. And the doctor said, no, you don't have cancer. And the guy was still like imminent on it and stuck on it and still thinks he has cancer. And the doctor put him in anesthesia and didn't actually give him the surgery. But after he told him, yeah, I gave you surgery, took it out, you're nice and done. The man went back home happy and healthy. But after 3 more years, he had a friend tell him that no, the doctor didn't actually give him surgery. The doctor only put him on anesthesia. Instantly, the guy went under sickness, illness. He got all of the symptoms of cancer again. And then he actually got cancer. And so that story stuck with me for 3 years and even until now. And honestly, those 3 years of me hyper researching everything about health, from cold showers, meditation, getting into self-improvement, ketogenic diet, carnivore diet, cutting out all of the things, and like literally reading ingredients. Every single product my mom puts in the shopping cart at a supermarket, I have to read the ingredients. That is how good a trauma can influence you if you take it in the right way. Now fast forward 3 years of hyper research. One day so far into the future, I remember specifically sitting at a table, and this was pretty recent, this was like a week ago. It was a country club's restaurant, and sitting around the table was, again, the law of attraction, mother's friend, and all of these different mom's friends and friends of friends. And it was a pretty good dinner. But the main point here was I was slightly bragging. I was slightly bragging about how I was constantly taking cold showers, love cold showers, England cold showers, England, the England cold showers, my plans for living until 120, my diet of all meats, vegetables, whole foods, and all of these like tiny intricate, like, you know, the biohacky type of advice, like, red light therapy, hyperbaric chamber, and like supplements I took. And me finishing the sentence of bragging, I realized right there and then that I had the body of a super healthy teenager and the mind of a very, very, very like whole and intact, not scared anymore, confident. I had the mindset of I can beat any illness. No illness can seriously affect me, because I had implemented fasting, intermittent fasting, a healthy, wholesome food routine and diet, cold showers, and all of those intricate biohacking tips and like tricks. And most importantly, I felt whole and intact. I had a good peace of mind, and I had a very, very good state of mind, mental health. Now, just a disclaimer before we start the video. There are 3 disclaimers, and number 1, I've made about a 5 kg gain in pure muscle mass in a period of 2 to 3 months of harsh forward. I've made about a 5 kg gain in pure muscle mass in a period of 2 to 3 months of harsh force feeding. Number 2 is you often forget the very specifics of like, this meat has this amount of nutritional information of 5 grams of magnesium. You often forget those, and I do, so I've listed that down as a disclaimer. And so in this guide, I'll give you the things that really, really stick. So like the main core fundamentals. Number 3 is this dialed in diet and routine took me research and a bunch of time in trial and error. So if you feel that something isn't like really matching towards yours and it doesn't really feel right, try it for at least maybe a week or so, or a few more days. So from the point of, this doesn't work, try it for a few more days, and then if it actually doesn't work, then bounce and try another method, try another meat, try another way. Now, number 1 is diet, elitist plus carnivore. This is literally what I've just wrote down. So the first point is diet is about cutting away things. So if you have a terrible diet of like, you eat donuts, if you think you have a terrible diet and like you physically feel it in your body and you see it in your body that you have a bad diet, you've acknowledged that you're eating like donuts, fried chicken, all of those bad things. And I'll explain the point that my mother like strongly thinks, and like I've tried to convince her, and I guess I've half convinced her. So she firmly believes that to have a good diet is to add healthy things, add a mystical mushroom that like increases your brain functionality. No, that is not how it works from a lot of different people I've watched. So from Alex Becker, from some keto YouTuber, and some other keto YouTuber, trust me bro, there's a bunch of keto YouTubers that I've watched throughout my 3 years of hyper research, and cutting away things is the way. Because if you think about it, if you're still eating the burgers, donuts, fried chicken, you add a mystical mushroom on top that increases your heart rate variability and your brain functionality. That is not really going to work, because if you truly think about it, you still have the burgers, fried chicken underneath all of that. So you're kind of treating this mushroom as a sort of medicine to take out all of those bad things. Honestly, I should have mentioned this before. I should have added a fourth disclaimer, is that all of this is, again, very well suited towards me, but all of this is not medical advice. This is from like 3 years of gathering different type of advice from different sources. So maybe there's a up-to-date trend or up-to-date research that says bread is actually healthy and trashy oils is actually healthy. Just take this with a grain of salt is what I'm trying to say. So the first point under the first point of diet is about cutting away things is cut bread, cut sugar, or like more specifically sugary treats that your mother treats you to. So before all of this self-improvement, before hitting the gym and going into secondary school and just like reading books and all of the self-improvement habits, I often treated, and every time I went to this supermarket called Tesco's, I would pick up a treat that would be, what is it called? I think it's called a chocolate eclairs, and it's this, like, honestly, it's delicious, and I get why a 12-year-old chubby, skinny fat kid would love this. So I haven't had it in a while, and I won't be having it like anytime soon. But anyways, this treat is like a pastry, and inside there's whipped cream, and on top there's chocolate. And generally speaking, I've never been a fan of like those hyper toxic factory made, like colored and artificially flavored gummy bear type of thing. So I resorted to a pastry with wholesome whipped cream and chocolate on top. Like, I genuinely thought that chocolate eclair was more wholesome, and it probably was better than like those artificially colored gummy bears. So that was one of the main contributing factors to my skinny fat body, and now it's obviously shredded and I've cut that away. So that's been a big help by me simply cutting away, because I was genuinely, like, almost every single day I was eating that. Like, every time we went to that supermarket, I was picking it up, and my mom would reluctantly give it to me. Number 3 is cut rice for a period. I know every single Asian or every single like person who loves rice is probably screaming at the screen right now, but cut rice for a period. And I know this is like illegal for an Asian to say, especially me. Just do it for a period. Do it for, like, maybe cut it for 2 weeks or so. Because what you learn from this is whether you need carbs or not, whether you need the rice or not. This will give you a general idea of what your body needs. So some people function really well on keto diet, which is basically just vegetables and meat, and some people need actually just some amount of carbs to feel like whole and intact. So from me doing this, I found out that I actually need some rice and I need some carbs in my life. And so I think the best form of carbs is probably rice. If you think about it, that like the bread that you buy from whatever the brand is at your like local supermarket, it's genuinely not bread. It's because if you think about it, bread is just flour, water, salt, and that's basically it. So if you try to find the next time you're buying bread, hopefully you don't, hopefully you resort to rice, and yeah, just rice, because bro, there's a lot of things I want to say here. So the next time you're at a supermarket, do not buy the bread that has like flour treatment agent flavorings. And if you just look at the ingredients and see that there's a bunch of E25, E255, and all of those like extra things, thickener, maltodextrin, all of these things that are unnecessary, that make the bread like more easy to eat, more like, it makes you sort of a binge eater. All of those things make you a binge eater, and are sort of indulging into the unhealthy bulk, if you get what I mean. So try to find a bread company that is literally just flour, water, salt. But specifically, one time my mum really wanted to have bread, and so I scanned through the whole archive, the whole literal like section of bread, just to find a good brand that actually sold flour, water and salt bread. And the bread was consisting of like 3 different flours, of like rye flour, wheat flour, and all of these things, and there was like whole grain seeds in it, and it looked healthy. But generally speaking, it is best to avoid breads, because like there is the gluten chemical in it, the gluten, whatever it is, there's gluten in it. Even if you don't have a gluten intolerance, you'll find that gluten is actually like very bad for your digestive system. And generally speaking, it is very bad for your digestion. So why, and if it impacts your digestion, then it will literally impact your entire body's energy. So when you are literally digesting something, like basically all of your cells and energy is focused on digestion. And if you just think about it, it's literally common sense. If something's very hard to digest, then it will take more energy, and that will sap it away from your productivity. And number 4 is cut a trashy oil. So this is basically common sense. If you like look anywhere on the internet, even if it's like the big pharma and the big health industries, they all know, and even the keto influencers, and like everyone, basically everyone just talks about trashy oils and how it's actually bad for you. So vegetable oil, sunflower oil, rapeseed oil, and just if you see, as a general guide, if you see a giant tub of yellow, a giant plastic tub of yellow oil, that is generally a bad sign. Even if it says high in omega-6, 3 and 9 oils, or it lowers cholesterol, or there's 0 cholesterol in it, it's still terrible for you, because it's like, I forgot the exact term, but it's a bad fat that will literally cause like heart problems. Now, what are some good oils? Some good oils are literally pure, as a general guide again, is cold pressed or cold extraction. So in order for you to make a trashy, like super unhealthy oil, you need to heat the individual seeds like to a very high heat, I'm pretty sure. And so with cold press and cold extraction, it's literally just a cold rock that runs over the olives in like a mountain in the countryside, and oil comes out. That is how healthy the extraction process is. So as a general guide, look for cold extraction or cold pressed. And the 2 best oils from what I found is avocado oil and extra virgin olive oil. And make sure it's cold pressed. And the best case scenario is that it's a single origin, which means that it comes from only one place, instead of like mixing a bunch of different oils from Spain and Greece and just a bunch of mixes. The best case is single origin, cold pressed, extra virgin olive oil or avocado oil. And if you have the self-limiting doubt of like, can I even use this expensive oil or high quality oil for cooking, or like just grilling my steak? Yes, you can, bro. I've tested a bunch of different things, and it's sort of a fallacy, to be honest. If like, especially if you have Asian parents, they often say that olive oil and all of these butter and like avocado, these healthy oils that are like in these fancy packaging, that like generally they can't be used for frying, and they're only used for salads. I found that that's not the case, because I've grilled like hundreds of steaks with literally my cold pressed extra virgin olive oil. Another thing is literally butter. So there's a huge misconception. I know you're probably not believing this if you've like believed that butter is bad for a long time, and especially hearing from a 16-year-old as myself that butter is actually good for you. It's probably very hard for you to believe this, but genuinely speaking, I'll leave some links down below in the description, but I genuinely believe that butter isn't as evil as you think, because I'll give you another point that I've listed down like further into the list, but I'll just mention it now. They demonize things like butter with the help of marketing. So if you've ever seen the brand Flora, it's like, it's not butter, and it's literally just like fake bullshit. Basically, there's like a bunch of different vegetable fats which are literally the toxic and trashy oils that I'm talking about, like the literal sunflower oil, rapeseed oil. It's literally just a combination and like abomination of all of those things together. Flora. What you need is grass-fed, grass-finished butter. And the main reason why people say butter is bad, it's that it like skyrockets your cholesterol and makes your blood like literally coagulate, and makes your heart like more increased risk of heart attack. But honestly, I can't explain how that's such a misconception, but honestly some doctors or some keto influencers can literally explain it like 10 times better as me, so I'll leave some links down below. But as a guide, literally just think about the Indian people that like make ghee. Literally, if ghee is good, which is literally just butter but without the dairy, or like the little like white bubbles, I'm not sure what it's called, maybe it's the dairy, but if you just think about it, you search up ghee on anything, just, this is known advice that ghee is good. So just, if ghee is good, butter must be good as well. So, like, if ghee is good, then butter maybe like, it must be somewhat good as well, is what I'm trying to say. And maybe it's that dairy that's causing the seemingly insanely bad heart attack. But if you just look it up on YouTube, and instead of taking like from what I've heard is that there's an old study that actually talked about how butter is bad for you. That old study has been like taken by these literal stupid billion-dollar companies of Flora. That old study that doesn't matter anymore, because there's literally dozens of new studies that butter is better, saying literally butter is so like healthy for you. Now the second point under the big category of diet elitist plus carnivore is, as a general guide, keto is pretty solid plus keto influences. Okay, so what I mean by that point is, if you're just getting started into the health space, the true health space, so not looking at the government advice on health and the literal old studies. So if you're watching these keto influencers, generally speaking, these keto influencers are a good filter on what is real food and what is not real and like artificial. So what you'll find when you search keto influencer, keto channel, you'll find that these people have probably been scared by a health before. They've probably experienced some like trauma, perhaps cancer, whatever, some big terminal disease. So these people, from that health scare, they've hyper researched and everything, and what you'll find is a common theme amongst all of them is that they like hate artificial things. They almost like all of them, literally, when they're going into like a supermarket shopping spree, and then they literally film themselves going to shopping, they literally, almost all of them, look at the ingredients on the back of products. And so generally speaking, keto, if you're just starting out, is a good place to start to learn what is real and what is not real. Now, to give you some examples of like true good keto influencers, one would be like a doctor called Dr. Berry, and then there's some guy called, I forgot his name. It's Flav City, I'm pretty sure. Flav City. But the thing with Flav City is that I find him a little bit soy, to be honest. If you just look at his channel, if you just go look at some of his videos, you'll find that he isn't like the best example of a like leader type of a person. He isn't like the masculine man that we all like. He isn't exactly the pinnacle of like physical health, I'd say. Perhaps his organs are like insane, optimal condition. His heart health is amazing, and he just doesn't have any muscles. He's a bit flabby. Perhaps that's the case, but he's not exactly the best, like in the best physical condition. So, but his advice is pretty solid, and yeah, he does make a pretty good filter on what to buy. He does educate you a lot on like what the ingredients mean. Another guy, I genuinely, bro, I can't think of his name, but it's this like a jacked white dude that, you know, he kind of does the same thing as Flav City. So like he occasionally goes to a Costco to pick out the best keto items, and then he films that and it shows you the best keto items. But just look for a buff white guy. And number 3 under the category of diet is meat and cholesterol has been demonized by processed meats and saturated fats. Okay, so under this point I wrote what the context of this point is, and I believe it's the billion-dollar companies with their insane marketing campaigns. And to give you a like perspective on how insane their marketing campaigns is, I once stumbled across this video on like why coffee is popular in Japan, and the guy goes to explain that there's this like insane guy on marketing which he literally planned out a year, not even a year, like literally years and decades campaign of literal like propaganda and indoctrination of Japanese children. Because I think the story behind that marketing campaign is that the coffee industry couldn't find a way to like influence Japanese market. So because the Japanese were like so loving of their own tea and like tea ceremonies, matcha, and just coffee wasn't suitable. And so what they did was literally like make a coffee flavored sweets in the advertisements, and like they've trained the kids from a young age to like the taste of coffee from the sweets. And then as they grow up, they get more indoctrination, more programming, and then as they grow up, now it's suitable for coffee. Now they're suitable for the products to come in, and now the market's ready. And so that's how evil and how big like these billion-dollar companies think. They literally think in decades. And so these marketing campaigns are sort of, the main aspect of it is us versus them. So they create this narrative of us versus them. Oh, cholesterol is insanely bad. We hate cholesterol. Now we're gonna use this term in our marketing of like eggs and like supplement drinks of this lowers cholesterol. It lowers your cholesterol. And like a good example of this is when I went to the supermarket of like the Malaysian supermarket. So if you didn't know, I'm back in Malaysia from the UK to visit family for the summer holiday. But point is, I went to the supermarket with my grandmother and we were picking out eggs, and literally almost all of them, there was no free range, there was no like organic and like vaccinated. You know the red line mark, if you've ever been in the UK or if you live in the UK, the red line mark which tells you that the chicken's essentially just been vaccinated and everything's safe to eat, even raw you can eat it. And there's none of that in Malaysia. There's basically only literally the only big word of low cholesterol or lowers cholesterol. Another thing is my grandmother's like all-in-one supplement drink. So this is a very common thing amongst like Southeast Asian countries where the grandmother kind of like, she doesn't eat as much now. So there's this big companies advertising, oh, you can drink this and then your bones will improve, and then your heart's good, and then you won't have diabetes, and then it lowers your cholesterol. There's this big brands advertising these big jugs of all-in-one supplement drinks with like all of the multivitamins, and it's just like a meal replacement drink for like gym term, like gym bro term. That's how you say it. Honestly, those formulas are like, they're such like bullshit as well. Like, I was sitting at home, and if you didn't know, again, these Southeast Asian countries, the television, it's such an old television type of program. There's no Netflix, there's no YouTube. You don't get to choose what you watch, alright? So it's typical TV, and every now and then there's like a series of ads that come out. Like, so every 10 minutes or so there's ads that come up, and then there's this terrible, like, such a fake ad of these meal replacement tubs of like powder, and it's literally advertising the kid going like, wow, as the kid drinks it, and as the kid's like, wow, I'm so much smarter now. And like, it shows literally a x-ray like visual of the bones of the elderly person, like their bones getting stronger basically. And they go so far to literally create their own compound. They literally have a compound that's like FMMGP plus 33. What type of chemical is that? That's not even magnesium at this point. Like, who invented that? Number 4 is an example of my main meal when I was a grinder and I was like going to the gym. Like, I was literally looking like a bear. I was looking like a gorilla at that point. This is an example of my prime day meals, because now I'm in Malaysia and like my routine's all over the place. And as soon as I get back to the UK, that will be a different story. But this is the main meal. Big piece of meat, so whether that be like a giant tomahawk steak or like a bunch of chicken thighs, just needs a big piece of meat, loads of extra virgin cold pressed olive oil, like just whether you're using that to literally cook the meal or to sprinkle on top to add calories to it, and then a bunch of like sea salt or pink Himalayan salt, coriander, turmeric, black pepper, rice. So the rice is literally turmeric, black pepper, salt. That is where the seasoning goes to. And then chickpeas in the rice. And then if you can just like visualize this in your head, it's literally a giant tomahawk steak, some coriander, and literal like turmeric, black pepper, salt, olive oil, chickpeas, rice. And so this is like the main meal I eat like almost every day, because it's so like convenient to make, and it tastes pretty good as well if you add salt to it. But not to mention, especially with the tomahawk steak, if you master how to cook steaks and you eat the fatty parts, you master how to cook the fatty parts and you eat the fatty parts. If you master how to cook the steak, and especially the fatty parts, like, if you learn how to eat that part, you'll both get the most nutritious part of the meat. Literally, the fat is the most nutritious part, and you'll learn how to actually, like, that is literally the best part for me now. Like, I remember when I was a young child, and I just never ate the pork belly's fat part because it was disgusting to me. But now I know how to cook steak so that the meat is like sort of crispy, like the fat on the outside of the fat is crispy, and as you bite in, it's like soft and how fat is meant to be. And so if you learn how to cook steak and learn how to eat it, it'll be so beneficial for you. Number 5 under the category of diet is the healthy bulk is the only option. So I've experimented, and if you want a diet for bulking, productivity and health, really the only option is to healthy bulk. Even if you're just bulking, the only option is healthy bulk, in my humble opinion. Because if you think about it, this is like some bro science that I invented, or I've heard about it somewhere from a friend or some YouTube video. I don't exactly remember, but if you think about it, if you're eating whole foods only, then you're really only getting the true muscle mass with no fat added. So if you eat junk food, eat a bunch of McDonald's, eat a bunch of ice cream, like cheat meals and dirty bulking, that's what I'm trying to say. If you go down that path, what you'll find is that you'll gain more fat than pure muscle mass, and you'll look terrible. This is why people like go to such insane amounts of bulk, so you see them bulk all the way up, they look literally terrible, they look obese, and then they shred down. That's what I believe dirty bulking is. But if you healthy bulk, I strongly believe that you'll keep a shredded, lean bulky body as you get bigger and bigger and bigger. You'll just keep that body naturally. Okay, topic 2 is timing of the meals plus things to do. So the timing of this is where the productivity comes in. So I just covered before, it was basically all health, and now is like the productivity part. So the best way to like convey this to you is to explain it through my own routine and why I do my own routine. So I eat lunch at 11:30 a.m. 20 minutes before that, I have apple cider vinegar, and with the lunch I generally avoid carbs, and I eat until I'm 100% full. So I should have mentioned at the beginning of this point that I eat lunch sort of still to keep my productivity, keep my like mind working still, and not have too much like burden on my digestion, so that I can actually still keep on working and my mind keeps on working. So generally, from what you'll find is if you eat a lot of carbs, so if you're literally eating only bread and pasta, then you'll find that it fatigues your mind a lot. So eat until you're 100% full. Generally avoid carbs if you can, and apple cider vinegar 20 minutes before lunch. And then that apple cider vinegar has like been the biggest help so far. I only discovered this like a few weeks ago, and essentially what that helps with is apple cider vinegar, like it kind of takes the afternoon crash away, sort of. It takes the, you know, whenever you load so many carbs, like you have a sandwich or something, or like some pasta or some noodles in the afternoon, and then you literally from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. you just feel that afternoon crash and you're so tired. So the best way to avoid that is do not eat over 100%. So if you want to bulk, it's over 100%, but in terms of the lunch right now, it's 100% to maintain your sort of like add more calories to your daily like intake. So it's not to bulk right now. And then I have dinner at 5 p.m. So I have dinner at 5 p.m. because I go to sleep at around 8 or 9. So you need like 3 hours of digestion of not eating anything before bed, so that tomorrow you wake up like, so you can actually wake up not feeling groggy, and then you can get straight to your productivity work. And for dinner, this is where we bulk. Inhale absolutely everything and force feed yourself. So how to do this very effectively, from my personal experience, I used to be a big watcher of anime. I used to watch like Dragon Ball Z and like Luffy, and like just generally speaking, if you watch anime or if you've ever watched anime, then you can probably recall that like scene where they're literally inhaling everything, like they're literally inhaling. Two really good scenes that come to mind that like really help me force feed myself and like keep on force feeding and like actually help me bulk is from the anime Baki. So the first scene is him literally inhaling a whole like table worth of food, and him actually like Baki himself inhaling absolutely everything and chugging a bunch of water. You can go find that scene if you want, but the second scene is the Baki smile. So the Baki smile, Baki. And then the second scene is the Baki smile. So what I mean by this is if you literally just go search up Baki smile, you'll find like that their smiles are literally like evil. It's like an evil smile, and then I play that like theme tune of, I think it's called Crazy Spec theme song. So I paired like the smile and the theme song like together in one visualization, and the visualization And then there's the visualization of Baki eating. So these two help me a lot when I'm eating. I haven't watched anime in a while, don't worry. It's been like months and months since I've watched anime, so still a self-improvement, strong, ambitious man. Do not worry about that. I also should have mentioned why I don't eat breakfast, and the simple explanation behind that is there's honestly a bunch of proof. If you just go search up like Dr. Andrew Huberman and like Tim Ferriss, they all say the same thing. It's basically in the beginning, in your mornings, it's best if you want to be insanely productive, have that state of flow and like hyper focus on the task, is just to fast with like some coffee. And if you want coffee, then 90 minutes after you wake up. That's basically my like eating schedule for the day. Another thing that's helped me with bulking and force feeding myself is making enemies with absolutely everyone in your mind mentally. So a good example of this is in the gym. So there's this guy that's bigger than me and he's walking around like a little bit too arrogantly. He's walking around a little bit like Conor McGregor, and he has this smug look and he tries to stare at me, like death stare me almost. I just get so triggered by those things. I don't know what is. I make enemies with those types of people and it helps a lot. So whenever I'm like on my last few spoons and I'm like crossing the barrier of 120% full, I'm literally just thinking of that guy. I gotta be bigger than him. I gotta be bigger than him. That's also one of the things that helped me tremendously. And the third big topic is an actionable step. So develop this important habit. So this is one of the most amazing habits I've developed from that health scare. And I guess it was pretty easy to develop because I had a health scare. So what this habit is reading ingredient lists on every single product that your mum picks up at the supermarket. So whenever you're going grocery shopping, read every single like ingredient on the back. At first it will be insanely hard because you don't know anything. You don't know anything about ingredients. You don't know what maltodextrin is. You don't know what E250 is. You don't know what acid means. You don't know what sulfate, whatever. You don't know any of that. So it'll be brain burning at first, but if you can just go ahead and go through that like phase of brain burning and search up every single like ingredient that looks a little bit suspicious and watch the influencers I talk about, so like the hench white guy, Flap City, Dr. Berry. If you watch these people and like continuously looking at the suspicious items, the items that you can't really pronounce, and search them up on your phone and then see if they're actually good for you, and like they should just search up the name and like side effects and is it bad and negatives. And what you'll find is that a lot of the items cause very, very bad health effects. And so by doing this, you'll save your family, you'll save your mum, and you'll just generally speaking make a new level of health for your family. All right, so number 4, I've given you a bunch of things to learn about, to maybe try, but number 4 is how to implement this. And because I've given you so much information so far, but how do you actually like make a difference and do the action? The first point I've written under the big topic of how to implement is one at a time. So everything I've mentioned here, try and do it one at a time. So make a list. Probably it would have been a good idea at the beginning of this video to tell you to make notes, but essentially the best thing here to learn and implement is probably to make a whole list of what I've talked about in this video and like cross one off per day, and try to, if you have a to-do list for every single day, like let's say when you're going to bed you make your to-do list for tomorrow, try and implement these things and like really sit down. And what you find is that if you're trying to implement like new things, you'll often like feel that burning thing in your brain and you just kind of, your body wants to escape, so you try to like go to Discord and check some messages. So really just sit there and like tell yourself, I'm gonna sit here for 10 minutes, and then like if nothing comes out, then nothing comes out, but just try your best to implement this in your to-do. If you find this helpful and you find if you like think this sounds good, then generally speaking, one at a time will help you progress faster than trying to like do it all at once. And keep in mind that implementing all of these will probably take you like 2 weeks maximum. Like, even just implementing the lunch thing alone, if you want to change your lunch to an earlier time to fit the like 3 hours criteria before sleep, and you want to tell your family that you want to like eat earlier, you'll have to go through that entire phase of them going like, oh, you're eating so early, oh my god, oh, the rice is cooking at 6:30, oh, it's not ready yet. You have to go through that entire phase, and then once you go through that entire phase, it's so much more easier. Number 2, under the big topic of how to implement, is mindset. At the beginning, it is war, then maintenance. Parents forcing you breakfast, in brackets, and then to avoid parents' complaint or objection, show them your discipline or respect. Okay. So what I mean by this point is your parents if you've had a history of eating breakfast and then suddenly one day you're like, oh, I don't want to eat breakfast anymore. Your parents will literally freak out for like a couple of days. And then you explain to them your theory behind why you don't want to eat breakfast. I want to get to work straight away. It's just breakfast. Promise me, it's like 3 hours and then I'll eat. Like, don't worry about breakfast. And then like, you just try your best to convince them, and then just get over that phase of like 2 or 3 days of weirdness, and then you have the rest of your life productive, and like way more productive than any guy who eats breakfast. But a tip to avoid your parents' complaint or objections is to actually show them your knowledge or your discipline. So the play here is to gain the respect of your parents. So either blast them with insane amounts of knowledge that you like learn from a Dr. Huberman podcast or even this video, or like just wake up at 5 a.m. and like go on a morning run, cold hours, cold shower, 4 a.m. protocol, supplements 400. Like, just show them your discipline, and then they'll actually start to respect your opinions like a real man. Number 3, under the topic of how to implement, is start by influencing your parents when shopping. So the next time your parents are going to go get the groceries, follow along and literally do the thing I mentioned before. If you want to literally scan all of the ingredients and like literally search them up on your phone on Google, this literally has been the most helpful thing for me. And literally, when your mom's buying the everyday same household items of like maybe yogurt, like especially if the packaging has a sauce in it, or like it's a pre-made factory product, then do your best to look at the ingredients and literally search them up, because it's honestly, it's such a good habit to have, bro. Trust me. And then number 4, under the category of how to implement, is buy apple cider vinegar and check the ingredients. So a good brand is Bragg's. I'm pretty sure that's what the brand is. And there's like an elderly woman and an elderly man like as the logo, and then it's Bragg's. And then there's with the mother, it should be organic pasteurized, and at the back it should literally just be apple cider vinegar or organic apple cider vinegar. And that's pretty simple. Number 5, the last and final topic, is once you've mastered the basics, then you can go Alex Becker, Brian Johnson mode. Many unsexy things such as sleep, diet, and exercise are literally all base layers for basic health. All biohacking and supplement shit is just the icing on top. So what I mean by this is all of the basic advice of wake up, get sunlight in your eyes, have a good sleep routine, and do not drink caffeine too late in the afternoon. All of these basic things to like perfect the basic things of sleep, diet. And just, if you perfect those, that's already 90% of the battle. So to add the biohacking things of red light therapy, hyperbaric chamber, cold shower, 160 pills, to add all of those on top is just an extra 10%. If you mastered the basics, then that's gonna get you all the way. that's, you have to get this in your mind, that literally the biohacking things is just such an addition at the top. So once you've mastered the basics, it's 100%, but as you get richer and richer, then you can afford the biohacking things that add an extra 10% on your performance. And that, I believe, is at the end of the video. In a bit, bro. Thanks for watching. And join my Discord. It'll be linked down below.